I never imagined that my affluent wife could actually perceive my thoughts. Even though I'd been sneering about her behind her back every single day, about 18 months ago, to honor her late grandfather's dying wish, she accepted the proposal of the man she'd been engaged to since childhood. Soon after our wedding, we struck a peculiar deal. 1 year into our union, we would part ways. At that moment, she would go live with her long-lost first love. However, when her former flame, Kai, learned about our marriage, his fury drove him to leave the country. Possessing a striking and imposing beauty, and having secured such a wealthy spouse, I resolved to win her affections with my own efforts. Yet fate took another unexpected turn when less than 6 months into our marriage, Aurora's grandfather passed away. Without delay, she reached out to Kai, urging him to return home. When he did, Aurora, who usually maintained a cool and distant air, immediately burst into a joyful, seductive dance in the hallway. I, serving as her chauffeur, found myself an unwilling witness to this entrancing performance. At the airport, I encountered Kai for the first time. He was a thin, pallid young man with delicate features, a visage I instantly found unappealing. "Damon, fetch Kai's suitcase," Aurora ordered in her characteristic clipped tone. Accustomed to following her commands, I silently obeyed, loading the bag into the trunk. Driving our top-of-the-line S680 with its state-of-the-art suspension and employing every bit of my skill, I managed to create a situation where Aurora and Kai could converse undisturbed in the back seat. Aurora remarked, "Kai, throughout this past year I've kept my distance. Our bond has remained purely platonic. I've been waiting for you to return so you can truly win my heart." Gone was the usual icy demeanor. Now she appeared warm and approachable. As I cruised along the airport highway, an unsettling feeling gnawed at me. Kai replied, "Aurora, I realize now that I misunderstood you before. Rest assured, I'll make you happy from here on." Their soft-spoken whispers, carried clearly by the car's impeccable soundproofing, reached my ears. I couldn't help but think that they should at least wait until I was out of the picture as the legitimate husband before engaging in such intimacy. Muttering to myself about the absurdity of it all, I grumbled and accelerated to overtake a sluggish vehicle occupying the fast lane. A slow-moving car was impeding my path, and in my silent vexation I attempted a right-side pass without signaling. At that very moment, a green-plated electric vehicle suddenly merged from the far right. The two cars collided. Just as I regained control of my vehicle, the driver of the electric car inexplicably pressed the accelerator. My head began to spin, and after a violent flip, everything turned black. When I finally regained consciousness, I found myself in the driver's seat with Aurora trapped in the back. No matter how I tried, I couldn't release her from the wreckage. Outside, Kai stood a few meters away. Thankfully, traffic officers eventually arrived and helped extricate us from the mangled car, an outcome that I knew resulted from my neglect of the flash signal. After a thorough medical checkup, it turned out that all 3 of us were unharmed. In that moment, a realization struck me. This woman earns well over $4 billion a year. Although her business and stocks were not directly mine, the annual profits were legally shared marital property. With our divorce, I stood to receive at least $2 billion. With money like that at stake, why should I remain her doormat? I mused about the bank's enormous deposit. The market might be down, but it still yielded more than 4% interest, equating to an impressive $80 million per year. Running the numbers in my head, I smirked and thought, "Aurora, hurry up and finalize our divorce. Once I pocket that $2 billion settlement, I'll retreat to a sprawling 2,000 square meter country estate and even keep a college student on a monthly allowance of $10,000. Heh heh." Unbeknownst to me, while I was lost in my internal monologue, Aurora sensed every thought, Abruptly, I glared at her and declared, "Aurora, I'm your legal husband. You're not going to cozy up with Kai on my account." I silently raged. Just go ahead and end it already. Fling that money-stained black card at me. Besides, Kai isn't exactly a saint. He barged into your grandfather's hospital room and pushed him too hard, which led to a tragic hemorrhage. But if I reveal that, you'll accuse me of defamation. At that moment, Kai moved toward Aurora, attempting to drape his arm around her shoulders, only to be shooed away by her. Losing his balance, he stumbled and fell. Normally, she would rush to his aid with concern. Yet now, with a raised eyebrow and a playful smile, she remarked, "You're right. I am married. I'll behave." Then she summoned an ambulance to take Kai to the hospital and instructed her assistant to accompany him. Both Kai and I were left standing in stunned silence. What in the world is happening? I thought, as the situation veered off the script I'd imagined. Later, as Aurora and I rode home in another car, I was unable to reconcile the sudden change in her demeanor. I wondered, did Aurora suffer some head injury in the accident? As long as I'm around, there's no way she and Kai could ever be together. So why has she abandoned talk of divorce? I turned to find Aurora sporting a sly smile, her bright eyes silently conveying, "Still pretending, aren't you?" Overwhelmed, I coldly retorted, "Aren't you going to check on Kai's condition? If he loses a limb, it might just be better." Aurora remained silent, merely calling her assistant before dismissively saying, "It's just a minor bruise. Come on, let's get home." I thought, did she just call me honey? What is going on here? Did my performance fail to impress, or did I not express myself clearly? Clearing my throat, I continued. With Kai in that state, simply watching him makes me nauseous. As long as I refuse a divorce, you'll never truly be his. Aurora's delicate face curved into a knowing smile as she replied, "All right, honey. I'll keep my distance from him. And no divorce." I was utterly perplexed. Weren't you always saying we'd split once Kai returned? Come on. You're one of the nation's top entrepreneurs. How can you renege on your promise? You vowed to divorce me the moment Kai came back, along with that $2 billion payout. My mental circuits were overheating trying to unravel it all. Out of the blue, a gentle, fragrant breeze drifted through as Aurora wrapped her arm around mine and teased, "Honey, what do you fancy for dinner tonight? Should we eat out, or should we dine on me?" I was taken aback. Was my wife suddenly possessed by a mischievous spirit? Just moments ago, she had been the epitome of aloof reserve, and now she was addressing me so intimately. I wondered if my own performance was lacking, and whether I needed to recalibrate. After all, as a villain with billions riding on the line, I expected to evoke the kind of loathing that leaves people grinding their teeth. Once we arrived home, I excused myself to the bathroom. Aurora then directed the maid to prepare our meal. As icy water cascaded from the showerhead, soaking me to the bone, I couldn't shake the confusion over this drastic narrative twist. Moments later, Aurora's voice, ominous and unyielding, echoed from outside the door. "Sweetheart, are you finished? You usually wrap up in 5 minutes, but it's been 40 today." That tone sent chills down my spine. Something's off. I must have missed a clue. I need to uncover what's really happening before I end up meeting my demise, and losing that divorce payout in the process. Abruptly, the sliding door burst open, and a delicate, slender hand reached in. Aurora strode into the bathroom, clad only in a white blouse and sheer black stockings, a combination that was equal parts enticing and dangerous. I instantly realized that this was no accident. It felt like an orchestrated trap. If I, as the conniving villain, even hinted at anything untoward, I'd be blacklisted for coercion. It was clear she intended to seduce me, and then later claim I had forced myself on her, thus nullifying my claim to the handsome settlement. Determined not to lose my edge, I summoned a dramatic scowl and snapped, "Who's calling? Don't they need their rest? Hang up now!" but secretly, I was elated, just as the incoming call flashed Kai's name on the screen. Perfect timing. Answer it quickly, then leave these two to their private world while I enjoy some solitude. Aurora hesitated for 2 seconds before answering. In the hushed bathroom, I could distinctly hear Kai's pitiful voice. "Aurora, my wound is agonizing. I'm all alone at the hospital and feel utterly abandoned. Could you come keep me company?" I silently admitted, albeit begrudgingly, that Kai was a master of playing the damsel in distress card. Though I pitied him, I had no intention of letting him meddle further. After a brief pause, Kai added weakly, "Damon, I'm sorry to interrupt, but please continue without me. I'll manage, even if I end up catching a cold tonight." I mused darkly. Kai has an uncanny talent for evoking that obsessive yonder aura, a perfect match for my own sinister side. It's almost seamless, and I relish the thought of breaking up their true love. Aurora's brow furrowed, and she moved closer, her porcelain skin and hypnotic gaze momentarily disarming me. Before I could process the sudden intimacy, she pressed her lips against mine. My very first kiss vanished in an instant. I thought bitterly, damn it, my first kiss is lost. Aurora plays the fox spirit to perfection. Then a graceful, jade-hued finger brushed against my lips as she whispered, "Don't speak just yet." Aurora retrieved her phone, and, as if transforming entirely, her expression shifted back to the cool, aloof beauty everyone expected. "Mr. Nakamura," she spoke crisply, "my husband and I are indisposed in the bathroom at the moment. The hospital has already arranged a caregiver for you, and if that isn't sufficient, we can send more." On the other end, Kai coughed, a harsh, choked sound that seemed to signal his deteriorating condition. Then, in a strained, desperate tone, he murmured, "Aurora, it's all my fault. You've grown so unfeeling that I'm convinced I'm being punished. I can endure any hardship, but remember, you vowed that we'd never truly part until the heavens themselves collapsed." I couldn't help but think, listen to his impassioned words, almost moving. "Aurora, are you really so indifferent? Go on, tend to him." I abruptly pushed Aurora's delicate finger away and declared, "Stay away from me. I won't be seduced by your antics. I've had countless lovers over the years. These little tricks won't work on me." With a mischievous glint in her eye, Aurora then addressed the phone. "Mr. Nakamura, take care of yourself. My husband and I have far more pressing matters." Before he could respond, she hung up. Moving closer, her eyes sparkled with flirtation as she challenged, "So you claim to be a maestro of seduction. Now that we're alone, prove it. Show me what you've got." Aurora's sudden shift did nothing to deter my determination. I countered playfully, "Very well then. Close your eyes and allow me to demonstrate the true art of seduction." Aurora complied with a coy smile, and I quickly slipped out of the bathroom to retrieve a change of clothes before hurrying downstairs. The maid greeted me with a smile. "Young master, you're done with your shower. Just ask young madam to join us, and dinner can begin." I nodded and took my seat at the dining table with an impassive face. Soon, Aurora, dressed in pajama attire, descended gracefully, remarking, "Eat, honey. You've lost some weight lately. You must look after yourself." The maid, visibly taken aback by Aurora's transformed appearance, lowered her gaze and began preparing the dishes. When I surveyed the elaborate spread, featuring stir-fried kidney ginseng with bull's testicles, steamed oysters, chive egg stir-fry, and sea cucumber delicacies, I nearly choked. What on earth is all this heavy fare? Are you trying to overload me? I'm still inexperienced. How am I meant to channel all this pent-up energy tonight? Aurora truly lived up to her reputation as the cunning scion of a wealthy dynasty, scheming from the moment I stepped into our home. Overwhelmed, I ended up eating only the chive egg stir-fry. Once more, that infuriating, mischievous smile from Aurora forced me to seclude myself in the bedroom. Lying there, I couldn't stop replaying her seductive attempt in my mind, my thoughts swirling with images of her in myriad alluring poses. The following morning, when I opened the door, Aurora stood there with dark circles under her eyes, as if sleep had eluded her. "Shall we visit the hospital to see if Kai is still alive?" I suggested. With a dismissive snort, Aurora replied, "I have a charity gala to attend tonight, and don't forget Kai will be there too." Originally, I'd planned to keep them isolated, but my scheming mind instantly shifted gears. Simply letting them have time alone won't do. I'll make sure to publicly humiliate you tonight, Aurora, and force you to finalize our divorce in front of everyone. Aurora paused, then added, "Remember, you must come." I resolved, I will attend, and I'll crush Kai utterly. Time slipped away quickly as I arrived at the hotel hosting the charity gala, oddly attired in sportswear while everyone else sported elegant suits and glamorous gowns. My unconventional outfit notwithstanding, nearly everyone recognized me as Aurora's so-called official husband. Soon enough, Aurora emerged in full regalia, radiating glamour, and was promptly followed by the dazzling Kai, a couple that appeared to have been heaven sent. The host announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The charity event is about to commence." As the dignitaries were introduced, the host cheerfully added, "Tonight we have an entertaining segment, a quiz show with prizes. Raise your hand to answer. A correct answer will donate 10,000 won to our charity fund, and a wrong answer will require a 50,000 won contribution." I thought, perfect. A chance to humiliate Aurora and leave her utterly disappointed. When the first question was read, "What is the world's most expensive timepiece?" I shot my hand up immediately. The host called on me. "Mr. Damon, would you care to answer?" I seized the microphone and bellowed, "A watch that waits. The longer you wait, the costlier it becomes." Laughter erupted throughout the hall. The host smiled wryly and replied, "Wrong answer. You owe 50,000 yuan." I exchanged a provocative glance with Aurora before stepping forward for the next question. "What is the largest island in the world?" As soon as the query was finished, I subtly squeezed Kai's hand, who was about to volunteer, and strode confidently into the spotlight. Amidst the distinguished audience, I shouted, "Pizza Island, because every slice is its own island." Kai then approached Aurora with a hint of discontent, remarking, "Damon, you're quite energetic tonight. You're even preventing others from having a turn." I arched an eyebrow at their bickering. Suddenly, the spotlight swung toward Aurora and Kai. Whether by design or coincidence, I couldn't tell. The host chuckled. "At first glance, Miss Aurora and Mr. Damon do seem like the perfect couple. Now, let me pose another question. Which river separates the cowherd and the weaver girl in our legend?" With an elegant smile, Kai raised his hand to answer, but before he could finish, I intercepted with the microphone, declaring, "The River of Shadows!" Kai's eyes narrowed as he sneered, "Damon, don't you fear ridicule for such a reckless answer?" Aurora, however, merely looked at me impassively. I thought, tonight I'll force you both into utter embarrassment, and tomorrow the headlines will be filled with it. The board of directors will have no choice but to insist on our divorce in the interest of the company. Yes, I'll see it done. The room buzzed with energy as every guest fixated on me, treating me like a sideshow attraction. I cared little. After all, with a $2 billion divorce settlement on the line, financial freedom was all that mattered. The host cleared his throat and continued with another question. "Now fill in this phrase. Pain something, flow something." No one dared to answer until all eyes turned to me. Zipping my jacket up to my chin, I coolly said, "Painless exit." The host faltered. Mr. Lee, please mind the context." Seizing the moment, I quipped, "I'm not trying to overshare, I just know how to rouse a crowd." The host promptly added another 50,000 yuan to the donation total and pressed on with yet another absurd query. I responded in kind with another outlandish answer that sent the audience into fits of laughter. Before long, Aurora clamped her hand over my mouth and tugged me away, clearly worried I might overstep our intended public humiliation. Midway through the cocktail party, Aurora suddenly became insistent, refusing to let me leave her side. With me lingering as the center of attention, how could the wily Kai possibly get his chance? At last, unable to hold his tongue any longer, Kai stepped up and said, "Aurora, let's retreat to the balcony for a private chat." Aurora shot him a cool glance and replied, "If Mr. Damon has something to say, he can say it here." I thought, Aurora is clearly trying to project the image of the perfect wife, always composed and in control. I need to orchestrate a situation where they're left alone. Clearing my throat, I interjected, "Aurora, perhaps Mr. Damon has something pressing to discuss with you. Come with me. I know a quieter room." I led them to a small conference area, gently shoving Aurora inside while Kai followed. I then deliberately left the door ajar, anticipating all sorts of outcomes. Aurora had been acting oddly lately. Perhaps she'd decided that divorce was no longer on the cards. Locked together, emotions might run high, and I could capture the evidence I need to file for divorce. If I can prove she's at fault, I might even secure a larger settlement. Who knows? Maybe 3 billion is within reach. As soon as Kai stepped in, he immediately began his advances. "Aurora, you must know my feelings for you burn as steadily as the stars," he declared. Aurora halted him with an icy tone. "Mr. Damon, if you've come merely to dredge up old memories, this conversation is over." Through the narrow gap in the door, I observed as Kai, realizing his romantic overtures weren't working, switched tactics. "Aurora," he whispered, "you might not know this, but Damon has been unfaithful, using your money to chase after other women." He then presented his phone, presumably loaded with incriminating images or videos. I thought, I wish Kai had some solid proof of Damon's infidelities. But the truth is, I'm completely innocent in that regard. I'm still a virgin, so if this divorce is to go through smoothly, I'll take the fall for this one. Suddenly, Aurora's voice rose sharply. "My husband works under tremendous pressure. Unwinding at a bar with young models is perfectly normal. What's wrong with him?" Kai frowned. "It's not just that, Aurora. Look at this video. He even kissed one of the girls in the VIP lounge. What sort of man does that?" I thought bitterly. I can't believe what I'm hearing. "Damon, isn't it obvious you have nothing genuine to do with any of this? Hurry up and divorce me. Forget the 4 billion. Just give me back the 2 billion we agreed upon." Before Aurora could respond, I heard Kai's face flush and his eyes redden from anger. I had a clear view from the door's crack. Seizing the moment, I pulled out my phone and started recording. In mere seconds, Kai dashed behind Aurora, pulling a silk scarf from his suit pocket. He pressed it against her mouth and nose, forcing her further into the room. Aurora's eyes widened in shock as she struggled to push him away. Though the lighting was dim and I couldn't discern every detail of her expression, I sensed sheer desperation. I thought darkly, even if this isn't mutual, 2 billion is at stake. Suddenly, I bellowed, "Stop!" and burst into the room. I delivered a swift side kick that sent Kai flying about a meter away. Shocked, he stammered, "How did you get here?" I glanced at Aurora, who was momentarily dazed, then marched over and slapped her sharply. Startled into full awareness, she glared at me as I, fist clenched, pointed an accusing finger at Kai, shouting, "You scoundrel! In broad daylight you attempt to assault a respectable woman." Aurora retorted coolly. "It's already late. It was dark outside. her comment laced with sarcasm that made me feel deeply humiliated. Within seconds, bystanders had gathered. The more astute among them quickly pieced together the situation, and soon a group of influential onlookers descended on Kai and those associated with his firm, Nakamura Holdings. I, once the supposed hero, suddenly found myself redundant. Out of nowhere, a small hand gripped mine and tugged me away. Looking down, I recognized it was Aurora's, though it seemed she had taken the wrong medication. We walked away in silence, her fury palpable. I thought, this woman is a ticking time bomb. I'd better not antagonize her further. That slap I gave was so satisfying, yet now I worry she might retaliate later. I tried to reassure myself I did it to save you. You enjoyed slapping me, didn't you? She snapped icily. I was momentarily speechless. This woman can literally read my thoughts. I was just contemplating that very notion, and now she brings it up. Determined to maintain my composure, I responded, if you have the facts, take it to court. If not, call the police. I have both facts and reasons on my side. There's nothing to fear. I added, how can you accuse me when you have no idea how perilous the situation was? Had I not acted, you might have lost control. Aurora glared and retorted, I was under the influence of sleeping pills, not aphrodisiacs. And you were there, lurking by the door, enjoying the spectacle, weren't you? Shocked, I stammered, How can you slander me like that? I thought bitterly. Damn! She's aware I was spying. If I confess, I'll be ruined. I must remain deceitful. There's still hope for a New Year return home. I stuttered, trying to explain, listen, I only happened upon a crack in the door, and got curious. I witnessed what happened, and in that split second I acted with a heroic eagle strike, to rescue you. If you don't appreciate it, I should have simply kept my distance. With a forlorn expression, I peered out the window, lamenting internally. No, I must hold it together. If I start laughing, my whole plan will collapse. My $2 billion is slipping away. The promise of a carefree country life, the allure of endless college companions, all gone. A wave of melancholy washed over me as I recalled an ancient poet's words about sorrow's boundless capacity. Tears threatened to well up as my nose stung. Sensing my distress, Aurora's tone softened. All right, don't be disheartened. I misunderstood you. How about I make it up to you tonight? At the mere mention of making it up, I perked up, exclaiming, I don't need much. Just a couple billion will do. Aurora's silver smile faltered for a moment before her eyes brightened. I can offer something far more valuable, she promised. I mused silently. This woman isn't one to get something for free. She never seems to be straightforward. Later that evening, I slipped into the modest guest room. After washing up, I began mapping out my grand escape back to the country. I jotted down a detailed list of everything I'd need on my phone. Suddenly, a fragrant breeze wafted in, and a soft, warm embrace pressed against my back. Turning around, I found Aurora already clad in a short bathrobe, modest enough to cover, yet tantalizing enough to stir desire. She whispered, We've been married for so long, and we still haven't had our wedding night. As her cheek brushed my ear, I hurriedly switched off my phone. What are you doing? We're husband and wife. Why complicate things with physical advances? I protested. Aurora scoffed. If you don't comply, I'll sue you for coercion, and you'd face a minimum of 3 years behind bars. I pushed her away, exclaiming, You're twisting every fact. She stepped back and perched on the sofa's armrest, coolly asking, Who do you think will be believed, me or you? I thought, I'm doomed. Tonight I'll lose every ounce of dignity. How am I expected to secure a divorce when I'm so thoroughly humiliated? I gritted my teeth, convincing myself, a real man can bend without breaking. I'll endure this degradation now, But someday I'll exact my revenge. Tomorrow I'll go to the hospital and arrange for a procedure to render myself infertile. Then I'll have my way, and Aurora will have no choice but to divorce me. With that determination, I resigned myself to a storm of unwanted passion. The next day, desperate for a solution, I scoured the internet for male contraceptive options. Vasectomy was the most common choice, though oral contraceptive pills existed, albeit only through imported sources. I roped in a friend to help procure them. Over the following days, I found every excuse to avoid a direct confrontation with Aurora. Finally, half a month later, the medicine arrived. Since Aurora had become more forward in her advances, insisting on intimate do's 3 times a day, I had to decline her advances repeatedly. Tonight, I planned to refuse once more. She was bound to reach her limit. Clutching the medication, I schemed. 1 pill lasts 3 months. This supply will see me through 2 years. If I can prevent her from conceiving during that time, she'll be forced into a medical exam, and then the divorce payout will be mine. Just then, a female voice called out, "Honey, what are you doing?" Startled, I dropped the pill, bending down to retrieve it. Aurora peered over and asked, "Are you searching for something on the floor? Is this it?" She held up a pregnancy test strip marked with 2 red lines. I froze, my mind racing. "What is this?" I managed to ask. Aurora helped me to my feet and explained, "It's a pregnancy test. 2 lines mean you're expecting." Shocked to my core, I stepped back as the realization set in. It seems the pill has already lost its potency. My plans have been thwarted. Aurora is pregnant. The very next day, I accompanied Aurora to the maternity checkup. Soon, we were ushered into the examination room. When the results came back normal, I hastily queried the doctor, "Doctor, is it safe to have sex while pregnant?" The doctor glared at me. "Not in the first 3 months or the last 3 months." I pleaded, "So the middle 4 months are acceptable?" The female doctor scolded me sharply. "Even though your wife is attractive, she's pregnant. What on earth are you thinking?" Relieved yet defeated, I turned to Aurora and said, "Did you hear that? The doctor says it isn't safe." Aurora pouted. "Oh, very well, I won't push you, but we'll settle our score later." I stammered in my defense. "Please, listen, I was merely passing by, saw a crack in the door, and got curious. I inadvertently witnessed what happened, and I acted with a swift eagle strike to rescue you. If you don't appreciate it, perhaps I should have stayed out of it altogether." With a downcast gaze, I looked out the window, thinking, I must hold it together. Otherwise, I might burst into laughter. My 2 billion is lost. The promise of carefree nights with beautiful companions is shattered, and that idyllic country life is over. Oh, the misery. A tide of sorrow overwhelmed me as I recalled the words of ancient poets about the endless depths of heartache. My eyes began to sting, and I nearly shed a tear. Aurora's voice softened as she said, "All right, don't be so despondent. I misunderstood you. How about I make it up to you tonight?" The promise of reconciliation perked me up immediately. "I don't need much," I replied. "Just a couple billion more, and we're even." Aurora's silvery expression faltered for an instant before transforming into one of playful assurance. "I can offer something far more valuable," she murmured, her eyes twinkling. I couldn't help but think, this woman never settles for handouts. She always wants something in return. Back at home, I retreated to my modest guest room. After a quick wash, I began outlining my grand plans for the future. As I scribbled notes on my phone, a gentle, familiar fragrance filled the air, and I felt a soft, comforting hug from behind. Turning around, I discovered Aurora, now clad in a short, perfectly modest bathrobe that offered just enough coverage to be appropriate while still stirring desire. She whispered, "We've been married for so long, yet we've never truly celebrated our wedding night." Her cheek brushed against my ear, and instinctively I switched off my phone. What are you doing? We're married. Why complicate things with physical intimacy? I protested. Aurora snorted. If you don't cooperate, I'll have grounds to accuse you of coercion, and that could land you in prison for at least 3 years. I shoved her away, exclaiming, "You're twisting everything." Taking a measured step back, she seated herself on the sofa and said coolly, "Who do you think they'll believe? Your ramblings or my truth?" I thought, I'm doomed. Tonight I'll lose every scrap of dignity. How on earth am I supposed to secure a divorce under these circumstances? Still, I resolved internally. A real man can adapt. I'd endure this humiliation for now, and someday I'd exact my revenge. Tomorrow I'd visit the hospital to explore options for rendering myself infertile. Once that was done, I'd confront Aurora, and she'd have no choice but to agree to a divorce. With that grim determination, I submitted to the night's storm of passion. The next morning, I searched online for male contraceptives. The common solution was a vasectomy, though there were also oral pills available, albeit only through import. I enlisted a friend to help procure them, and over the ensuing days, I found every excuse to dodge Aurora's advances. Then, nearly 2 weeks later, the medicine arrived. Since Aurora had become insatiable, demanding intimacy 3 times a day, I braced myself for yet another round of refusals. I held the medication in my hand, thinking, if I can avoid her for 2 years, she'll be forced into an examination, and then that divorce settlement will finally be mine. Just as I prepared to swallow a pill, a familiar voice interrupted. "Honey, what are you doing?" I jumped, the pill slipping from my grip, and bent down to pick it up. Aurora peered at me and asked, "Are you looking for something on the floor? Is this what you're after?" In her hand was a pregnancy test showing 2 distinct red lines. I was stunned. "What is this?" I managed to ask. Aurora helped me up and explained calmly. "It's a pregnancy test. 2 lines mean you're expecting." I recoiled in shock, feeling as if I'd stepped on something unexpected. After a long moment of contemplation, I realized that my plan had already crumbled. Aurora is pregnant, I thought bitterly. The next day, I accompanied Aurora to a prenatal checkup. Soon enough, we were called into the examination room. When the results returned normal, I hastily inquired, "Doctor, is it safe for us to have intimacy while she's pregnant?" The doctor glared at me. "Not during the first or the last 3 months." Desperate, I asked, "So the middle 4 months are permissible?" The doctor snapped, "Even though your wife is attractive, she's pregnant. What on earth are you thinking?" Relieved yet disheartened, I turned to Aurora. "Did you hear that? It's not safe." Aurora simply pouted. "Oh, all right. I won't push you, but we'll settle our score later."